What's up, guys? You might want to buckle those seatbelts and get ready because stimulus checks exploded. This is your stimulus check update, stimulus package update, and breaking news update. Take a look at some of the headlines coming out. You guys mentioned tears into Biden over failing to stop record inflation. The Federal Reserve in the administration has failed to act fast enough. You mean to tell me you think that Congress doesn't act fast? Let Manchin's land-based Biden administration Federal Reserve over slow inflation response. When will this end? He says matching on inflation by the administration failed to act fast enough. And as inflation hits a high mark by spiking food and gas prices, Manchin calls for relief from this record high inflation. I warned you about inflation and adding debt to our nation's economy. Now, this is going to be putting the Biden administration in the White House Democrats in a very compromising position as they're trying to get stuff done. And now we have mentioned the next day vocalizing his disapproval of all the spending causing inflation. Now, in addition to that, we're hearing that more protesters are vocalizing their disapproval of Joe Manchin. Take a look, activists criticizing Senator Joe Manchin arrested after protesting outside a power plant. So you guys, I'm gonna get caught up on the details. Manchin said we have got to get our house in order. Stimulus has exploded. Our economy is on fire with inflation. Now we'll link in the description below to this Business Insider article that says Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia tore into President Joe Biden's administration on Tuesday yesterday for failing to act fast enough to stop the rising inflation. The scorching statement comes as the White House tries to quietly woo Manchin back to the table for talks on Biden's agenda. When will this end? It is a disservice to the American people to act as if inflation is a new phenomenon, Manchin said in a statement. The Federal Reserve in the administration failed to act fast enough, and today's data is a snapshot in time of the consequences being felt across the country. The Consumer Price Index delivered a sobering news on Tuesday. The closely monitored inflation gauge rose 8.5% year-over-year for the month of March, in the largest such increase in 4 decades. The report reveals just how much the war in Ukraine has already affected the rising prices in the United States, with sharp increase in food and energy costs. But Americans were already feeling the pinch before Russian President Vladimir Putin launched large-scale invasion of Ukraine. Manchin made clear that his frustration doesn't lie with just one party. His anger is his own party leadership on their handling of inflation, which will not go unnoticed. And he also threw cold water on additional federal spending and raised an alarm about the growing national debt. So here we go again, we're having issues with more than stimulus provisions. When they're saying additional federal spending, that's stimulus, so he's saying he's going to be putting a halt to it. So we're gonna have to see Democrats try to convince him to get back on board, or we might have to see President Joe Biden, if there's going to be any stimulus, gas checks, or anything, might have to do executive orders or executive actions now. Instead of acting boldly, our elected leaders and the Federal Reserve continue to respond with half measures and heroic failures, searching for where to lay blame. He said the American people deserve the truth about why record inflation is happening and what must be done to control it. Manchin said top Biden administration officials, including Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, echoed what was largely an economic consensus for months. Inflation would be transitory. It wouldn't be a problem for just a little bit of time. That would improve as the pandemic receded and the global supply chain sorted themselves out. I believe it's transitory, but I don't mean to suggest that there's a pressures that will disappear in just the next month or two, Janet said in October. However, Yellen, a former Federal Reserve chair, said in December that it was time to abandon the more optimistic projections, as they're starting to change their minds as well and say inflation might be here a little longer than we expected. Fed Chair Chairman Powell, Yellen's successor, also ended up changing his tune on inflation as well as the U.S. Central Bank. One of the Fed's mandates is to closely monitor and attempt to control the current inflation. The White House has tried to soothe tensions with Manchin in a closely divided Washington. The West Virginia Democrats ruled outside influence. He sent the House approved social spending and climate package late last year known as that Build Back Better bill and stalling the Democrats' agenda in the 50-50 Senate. And it's because of the way that the Senate is currently structured. 50-50 why those senators hold so much power. Now at this time, the White House did not immediately respond to the request for comments. So there you have it, you guys. Now this is going to be heavily impacting all the stimulus packages. We're hearing there's call for new faces, stimulus checks. We're hearing there's 4 bills for gas stimulus checks, the child tax credits, getting rid of student debt. All these provisions for additional stimulus spending are now going to be on the chopping block, as we're hearing that Joe Manchin is not necessarily sure he is on board. So let me know your thoughts on this. Do you think that you agree with Senator Joe Manchin that listen, we got to stop the inflation is out of control, and a lot of it is due to all the stimulus spending that has taken place during the pandemic? We need to stop the spending? Or do we feel like we're still going through this pandemic? There's a lot of unknowns on the horizon, and people still need the assistance. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with Joe Manchin or do you disagree? Well, there's a lot of people that disagree with Manchin and they're vocalizing it as a take a look at this, you guys. More protesters getting arrested over Joe Manchin. I've shared with you in the previous video, so protesters have swarmed out to his yacht. They were kayaking all the way out. They are protesting on the water. They block his maserati. They follow him all over the place, and now we have more protesters getting arrested. Link in the description below. Activists criticizing Senator Joe Manchin arrested after protesting outside the power plant. Several climate activists were arrested Saturday after blockading the entrance of the West Virginia power plant as the part of an effort to call attention to Senator Joe Manchin, his ties to the coal industry. Senator Joe Manchin has had so many protesters in past year with all his stance as the moderate Democrat. Very interesting. Let me know your thoughts now. Also, where do we go from here with this new bit of information that he is not on board with Democrats in the Senate to pass through the reconciliation bill with concerns of debt and inflation? Are they going to be able to do this? Are they going to be able to pull it off and get him on board? What's going to be happening with stimulus check provisions? We've got 4 bills on the table. What about those child tax credits that expired? A lot of people are wondering what's going to be happening with these provisions. Well, as you guys know, the Congress, things could totally flip in the next 24 hours. It's very possible that tomorrow I could be doing an update that things have flipped yet again, and now Manchin is back on board. But whatever it unfolds, you guys, know that I will be here to share with you here on the channel and let you know whatever is taking place so you know what's going on. And as always, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. If you made it this far and you haven't already, don't forget take a quick second to explode the like button, helps out the channel a ton. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.